Community Viewpoint.
And welcome back to Community Viewpoint. I'm John Pawlak, your host once again for this segment of Community Viewpoint. And we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's something called the Yucca Mountain. We're going to have with us Nye County Commissioner Dan Schinhofen, who's with
I'm District 5.
District 5, yes.
Yeah.
I keep getting that.
Far south side of Pahrump.
Far south side. Yeah, I'm a far south sider from Chicago. So well, here's Dan. So Dan is. You reminded me the other day. You were I was one of the first people you visited when I was working at the Yucca Mountain Information Center.
That was probably my first month I moved into town.
Okay, so we've come a long way, uphill, downhill, and hopefully we'll be going uphill again. And Commissioner Schinhofen will be speaking to us, telling us what's been happening lately with the Yucca Mountain project.
Well, this past week we had 2 hearings from the NRC. The DOE was supposed to do these. They were supplements to their supplements on water issues at Yucca Mountain. And the only reason they're doing this is because Nye County and a few other states sued the NRC for stopping the licensing process. The DOE withdrew the license illegally, it was found, under the direction of President Obama at the behest of Harry Reid. So basically, it was the Nuclear Waste Policy Act that was in place in 1982, and in 2002, Yucca Mountain was designated as the nation's repository. When Senator Reid got control, he cut funding to it. Which I found strange because when the Republicans were talking about cutting the Affordable Care Act, Harry Reid's answer was, "It's a law, get over it." And that's what I said to Harry Reid in many times that I've seen and written to him since. Look, Yucca Mountain's a law, get over it. He keeps claiming this is dead. It's been dead more times than Carter has pills, I guess. It's not dead because it's still a law, and they had these hearings, so I'll try to get back on track here. The hearings were in Las Vegas on Tuesday night. I left the meeting here Tuesday, drove down there to that meeting, and got home at 11, and I was back in Las Vegas at 8:30 the next morning for a city council meeting. But we'll talk about the city council thing maybe some other time. It had to do with medical marijuana. And then on Thursday, we were in Amargosa. Of course, in Las Vegas, there was a lot of fear and loathing. Everybody got up, talked about how we're all going to die, and we don't want to dump in Nevada. And every time I hear that, I have to remind people there's this little area off Mercury called Area 5 that's been a quote, low-level waste dump for years. Recently, the governor sat down, got a working group together with the Department of Energy because they wanted to put U-233-35 in a 40-foot trench in the ground out there. And in case you don't know, that's as hot as anything that would go into Yucca Mountain.
Right.
But because of where it's generated, that's how they decide if it's low or high level waste, not how hot it is. So they came to an agreement after a year and a half, and they are now burying that 40 feet in the ground out at Area 5. And so my question to the governor, and I've written to him a few times on this, is how come Yucca Mountain's not safe?
Right.
We're talking 1,000 feet of rock above, 1,000 feet between where it's going to be stored to the water table, and 40 feet in a trench is good. So the hearings were about water. Very few people talked about water. In Amargosa, we had some people from California come up who were anti-nuke, telling us the dangers of nukes. And there was only out of maybe 12 people who spoke, 2 who spoke actually on the water issue. And the only issue with the water in the SREs, and this is supplemental to it, the SREs were the safety evaluation reports. One of the things we sued the DOE to move forward with, because it's part of the law, it's the licensing, it's the hearings, is that they have no water rights. The state engineer won't give them water rights because he says it's not beneficial use. Refer to Area 5. They have water rights. They're storing nuclear waste. So that's not really a hurdle. The governor, when he decides to follow the rule of law and have the hearings And if it's found to be safe, they can give them water rights. The other issue is the land issue. I know I'm just talking. You just interrupt me when you want.
No. This is repeating of what I used to speak about. So yeah.
Yeah. So the land issue, the only other issue in the SER, again, that's a safety evaluation report, was that Yucca Mountain's not wholly owned by the Department of Energy. It's owned by the Nevada Test Site. It's owned by BLM. Anyway, other government agencies hold it. So that's just a simple transfer of names. So otherwise, the SERs say it's safe. Mm-hmm. So now the next step in this whole thing, if we truly want to put it to bed and stop the conversation or kill Yucca Mountain, then I would think the governor and all the anti-Yucca people would say, fund this so we can have our 218 contentions heard and we can show it's not safe.
Right.
And we welcome that. We want to hear these contentions. We want to be assured that it's going to be safe.
As I did when I was at the information office, I asked them to come in. I said, I have all the literature here. If you can find something to stop Yucca Mountain, I have the literature to help you.
Right.
No one's been able to do that.
Yeah.
You know.
So the only thing they did it with a political ploy and stop the funding. Although every time you mention that, Senator Bryan likes to go back to talk about politics. Well, you know, they cut out the other two sites in the 80s, you know, the Screw Nevada bill, as they call it. And you know what? Let's stop living in the past. It's still the law. Nevada disagreed, was overwritten in 2002 by Congress. Now, there is a push now by Senator Heller and Reed, and I'm disappointed in Senator Heller with this, because he's trying to pass this bill that is called a consent, whatever it is. And I've asked him many times, he hasn't answered me yet. I met a staff person last night in Amargosa, and I asked him to ask the senator again to answer me, what other national security site allows local and tribal governments to veto it? Okay. And if he can answer me that, then they could put that in place for Yucca Mountain. This is a national security issue. It's not a states' rights issue. This stuff needs to, one, the law needs to be followed. The stuff needs to be stored safely.
Right.
It's simple to me.
Right. So we have the Nevada Test Site, which is the N2, S2, as they call it right now, and then Area 5 has the waste from all over the DOE sites from the United States, and it comes here, and everybody seems to be happy with that.
Yeah, and we don't get much out of it as a county.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
There's like what they call a little tipping fee for each.
The tipping fees, I'm glad you brought that up. The tipping fees are split between 6 counties.
Right, yes.
Yeah, and all of the trucks come through Nye County, and we get 1/6 of the proceeds.
Yes. So yeah. If we were looking at Yucca Mountain, if you want to find out about Yucca Mountain, you can go to our museum, which is, there's the museum. If you want to narrate this a little bit.
Yeah, that's the front of the museum, and as you go.
It's off a basin?
Yeah, it's off a basin road, just west, I think it would be, or yeah, it would be west, I guess, of the Petrick Park. So as you go in, the front part has a lot of great history in it. This is the back half of the museum, which is the test site history. A lot of those pictures there are the history of the test site and the bombs and everything else. Let's go to the next picture. And this area has been used for many talks, not just on Yucca Mountain, but the museum uses it for history talks and people who come in and give talks. That's part of the back half where, and this is a mock-up of a drilling machine that was used to help core and find out where the water depths were, which is almost 1,000 feet, 700 to 1,000 feet below. Let's show the next one. Way in the back there, that's a mock-up of the drilling machine, the tunnel boring machine. That's what I'm looking for. And on those video screens, all the way through there, there's all sorts of videos. My favorite one is the casks that they had tested, and they, ran them into brick walls.
I watched those so many times.
Yeah, lit them on fire with rocket fuel. The thing didn't break.
Right.
But anyway, my favorite one coming up, there's a tunnel boring machine, and that's just a mock-up of it. The actual machine is sitting up there rusting.
Yes.
Which is a shame. Now let's stop there. That is a fuel rod. That is what's going to go into Yucca Mountain, the fuel rods. Those things are, and when we come back to us, I'm going to show you what they're packed with, but those will go inside a cask. Do we have a picture of the cask, or is that the last picture?
No, I didn't get that one.
Okay, but that's the thing. Those are fuel rods, spent fuel rods.
And that's where it is in the picture over there, and Nevada Test Site, which is in the bottom center of the page, and that's where we are basically below that. And there's this one more picture. I came out of there, scared the hell out of me. I thought Tim was over there.
Yeah.
That's like cardboard cutout of Tim Hayes.
It is. It does. Yeah, I thought it was him. I thought he stopped to get.
And they say over at the museum it's kind of creepy because his eyes follow you. So anyway, let's go back and then
All right.
Dan's going to...
So the fuel rods, and this is the important thing people should know, I really think. People have in their minds it's a 55-gallon drum with green sludge and it's going to be going down the highway. Those fuel rods are in casks, and then they're in shipping casks. Mm-hmm. So inside of those, there are these. See that? There's a bunch of these little pellets.
About the size of a pencil eraser.
Yeah, and they stack up, and that's what's radioactive. Mm-hmm. This is not radioactive, but this is the size and shape of what's in there. Now, so the shipping cask would have to break. The cask holding the rods would have to break, and then these would have to break when you're shipping them, for one. So the biggest danger shipping, I think, is if the shipping container falls off and crushes your car.
Yes.
If it fell off, and if it broke open, and if the thing broke, and then these broke, and these fell on the ground, there's no cloud, there's no danger of it passing by air. That area is radioactive. They go clean it up. Inside of the Yucca Mountain, people have been talking lately, and Bob Halstead loves to give all the what-if scenarios. One of them is, what if a plane flies into the mountain? Well, it's on the edge of the test site, and I always ask them how many have flown into it so far. But
right.
The earthquake one, are we running out of time?
You got a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The earthquake one I really like. Well, it's a seismically active zone. Okay, so now remember, they're in a cask, and there are fuel rods, and there's these things. So it's going to have to be a big enough earthquake to bring down the mountain, crush the cask, break open these pellets again. Now they're laying on the ground. Guess what? You get less than, half inch of water? What is there's very little water falls out there. That water would have to go through the 1,000 feet of rock, come down to this, drive it down to the water table to be dangerous. So if enough water got in there to force this down to the water table right after the earthquake, that means we're beachfront property, and we got bigger things to worry about than what's in Yucca Mountain.
Exactly.
So we just want the science heard.
Right, and the science is there, except that the fact that politics trumped science.
Yep.
And
politics always trumps science.
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, so that was the Lord was saying that you're right. Yes.
We're on the
yes.
Unfortunately.
So, if you'd like to find out a little bit more for yourself, please go to the museum. I think the only day they're closed is on Sundays now.
Pretty sure.
And they're open just normal business hours. And we have one more minute if you want to wrap up a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, the NRC, by the way, the NRC did these hearings because the DOE punted. They didn't want to do the hearings. They said they didn't have any money. The NRC had a little bit of money to do the hearings. Mm-hmm. So now the NRC was forced to spend what little money they had, so they can't do the hearings. They have these vakakada, that's the only way I can say it, meetings that were a waste.
Yes.
Just a waste.
So anyway, we'll see you again, and you're always welcome to talk about anything and everything.
Great. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for visiting with us. Thank you.
Community Viewpoint.